Imagine this. You walk into a room full of your team. You can feel it before anyone says a word, the energy, the commitment, the trust, or the lack of it. Every team reflects its leader every single time. It's easy to think leadership is about telling people what to do, about making sure tasks get finished and deadlines get met. But leadership isn't about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. It's about showing up in a way that invites people to show up at their best. Because how you lead is how they will perform. If you lead with fear, you get compliance. People will do what they're told and nothing more. They'll play it safe, they'll keep their heads down, they'll stop caring. But if you lead with trust, you get commitment. People will take risks, they'll stretch. They'll work not just harder, but with heart. They'll care because they know you do. We often underestimate how deeply people are paying attention. Your team isn't just listening to your words, they're watching your actions. They see how you react under pressure. They notice whether you own your mistakes or blame others. They observe whether you truly believe in them or just say the words. They mirror you. So if you want a team that is passionate, brave, and resilient, then you must lead with passion, bravery, and resilience. If you want them to take responsibility, you must show what taking responsibility looks like. Leadership is not a role, it's a responsibility, and the way you choose to lead either raises the standard or sets the ceiling. The highest performing teams aren't built on pressure alone, they're built on purpose. People don't perform because they have to, they perform because they want to, because they believe in what they're doing, and even more, they believe in who they're doing it with. It always starts with you, not with the quarterly targets, not with the new initiative, not with the slogans on the wall, with you. So ask yourself, do I model the behavior I want to see? Do I show the kind of commitment I expect from them? Do I create a space where it's safe to take risks, to innovate, to grow? The truth is simple but hard. People will not rise above the example you set. But here's the good news, the opposite is also true. When you lead with integrity, with courage, with vision, people will astonish you. They will exceed expectations, they will lift each other up, they will create something far greater than the sum of their skills. Because how you lead is how they will perform. It always starts with you. Thank you. There is a deep truth written into the fabric of life. As a man leads, so shall those who follow. Leadership is not just a position or a title. It is a reflection of the heart. It is an overflow of character. When we look around and see the way people act, the choices they make, and the spirit in which they labor, we can trace it back, almost without fail, to the spirit of their leadership. Leadership shapes performance in the same way the roots shape the tree. What is hidden underground eventually shows itself in the strength of the trunk, the breadth of the branches, the fruit on the vine. In the same way, the unseen attitudes, values, and convictions of a leader rise up and find expression in the actions and habits of the people they lead. A leader cannot give what they do not possess. If there is no vision, there will be no vitality. If there is no courage, there will be no resilience. If there is no love, there will be no loyalty. People yearn to follow those who are steady, who are sure, who live by principles higher than themselves. When leaders stumble or live for themselves alone, they sow seeds of confusion and fear. But when leaders walk humbly, lead courageously, and serve faithfully, they light a path others are eager to follow. It is tempting to believe that leadership is about command, about barking orders or exerting control. But true leadership is not about power, it is about influence, and influence is won through example, through consistency, through trust. The leader who listens more than he speaks, who lifts others up rather than tearing them down, who holds fast to integrity even when no one is watching this, is the leader who will shape performance that endures. We live in a world where many look for quick results. Metrics, measurements, and milestones dominate our thinking, but performance, real performance, is a matter of the heart. It springs from devotion, from belief, from hope. People will labor long and hard for a paycheck, but they will give their best, their creativity, their passion, their loyalty only for a cause and for a leader they believe in. There is no shortcut to this kind of leadership. It must be earned day by day, in quiet choices, in unseen moments. It is built on countless small acts of faithfulness, a kind word when frustration would be easier, an act of forgiveness when anger seems justified, a steadfastness in vision when storms rage and doubt is everywhere. Leadership that shapes performance is servant-hearted. It seeks the good of others. It rejoices when others succeed. It grieves when others fall. It is patient. It is kind. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Such leadership does not seek its own honor, but the flourishing of those it serves, and there is great reward in this, not always the applause of men, not always fame or riches, but something far more precious, the building of a legacy, the strengthening of character, the quiet knowledge that you have called forth the best from others, and they rose to meet it. History is filled with examples, leaders who, by their steadfastness, called a people to courage in dark days. Leaders who, by their humility, created cultures of trust and innovation. Leaders who, by their sacrifice, inspired others to give more than they thought possible. Their names may or may not be remembered, but their impact echoes on in the lives they touched. There is no higher calling than to lead others well, no greater privilege than to inspire others to live not just for themselves, but for something greater. And so if you are called to lead, whether it is a company, a classroom, a household, or a team, lead with the deep awareness that you are shaping more than performance. You are shaping lives. Lead with vision, and others will dare to dream. Lead with compassion, and others will find strength in their weakness. Lead with integrity, and others will walk the harder, nobler road. For in the end, the measure of leadership is not found merely in profits made or awards won, but in the character built, in the hope kindled, in the courage awakened. As you lead, remember this: the world does not need more bosses. It needs more leaders, men and women who will stand firm, who will walk humbly, who will love deeply. Leaders who will, by their very lives, call others to higher ground, because leadership shapes performance, and leadership, at its best, shapes souls. There is a way of leading that lifts people higher. There is a way of leading that calls out the best, that nurtures strength, that builds courage. It is the way of trust, not the way of fear. Too often, in the rush to achieve results or maintain control, leaders turn to fear. They issue commands with threats attached. They motivate by pressure and intimidation. They believe that if people are afraid enough of failing, they will succeed. But fear is a shallow well. It runs dry quickly. It breeds resentment, not loyalty. It produces minimal obedience, not wholehearted dedication. Fear is a heavy burden to carry. It makes people small. It suffocates creativity. It poisons relationships. Where fear reigns, suspicion grows, silence spreads, and hope withers away. When leaders choose fear, they may win compliance, but they lose the hearts of their people. There is a better way. To lead with trust is to believe the best about others. It is to give responsibility and freedom, not as a reward, but as a show of confidence. It is to listen even when you already think you know the answer. It is to build people up even when mistakes are made. Trust opens the door for people to give their best, to bring their full selves to the work, to take ownership not out of obligation, but out of love and pride. Trust says, "I believe in you," and when people hear that, not just with words, but with actions, something powerful happens inside of them. They stand a little taller, they work a little harder, they dream a little bigger. Trust draws out greatness because it makes people feel safe enough to take risks, to stretch, to grow. Trust is not blind. It does not ignore faults or pretend problems do not exist. It is not naive. True trust is built on discernment and honesty. It sees the potential in others even when they cannot see it themselves. It offers correction, but always with a hand extended, never with a fist clenched. Trust holds people accountable, but not with shame, with encouragement to rise higher. The greatest leaders throughout history understood this. They knew that armies fight best not when they are driven by fear of punishment, but when they are fueled by trust in their leaders and belief in their mission. They knew that people work hardest not when their backs are against the wall, but when their hearts are engaged in the cause. When you lead with trust, you create a foundation that can weather any storm. Fear may win a battle, but trust wins the war. Fear may force short-term results, but trust produces lasting loyalty. Fear may produce duty, but trust inspires devotion. Look at the leaders who have left legacies worth remembering. They were not the tyrants. They were the ones who led with open hands and open hearts. They were the ones who, even in the darkest hours, spoke words of hope. They were the ones who believed in their people before their people believed in themselves. It is no different today. In a world that is often harsh and cynical, trust is a radical gift. To lead with trust is to lead against the tide. It requires courage, real courage, because it is risky. People will sometimes let you down. They will fall short. But the only way to lift them up is to keep trusting, keep believing, keep investing in them. Trust multiplies. When you extend it to others, they learn to extend it as well. A culture of trust spreads like sunlight, bringing warmth and life wherever it touches. It creates spaces where innovation thrives, where honesty is valued, where people feel they belong. Fear isolates people. Trust connects them. Fear punishes mistakes. Trust redeems them. Fear demands perfection. Trust celebrates progress, and in the end, trust accomplishes something that fear never can. It builds character. It transforms not just how people work, but who they are becoming. It shapes not just performance, but destiny. So if you are in a position to lead, and every one of us is, in some way, choose trust. Choose to see the best in others. Choose to believe that with encouragement and support, people can rise higher than they ever imagined. Choose to lead not with threats, but with hope, not with heavy hands, but with open hearts. It will not always be easy. Trust is a road paved with patience and forgiveness. It takes time to grow and can be lost in an instant, but it is worth every effort. For when you lead with trust, you are not just managing tasks, you are building lives. You are shaping souls. You are setting an example that will echo long after you are gone. Lead with trust, not fear, and you will see a harvest greater than you could ever sow by force. You will see hearts ignited, talents awakened, and a legacy that no amount of fear could ever achieve. In every corner of life, we hear voices. Promises are made, commitments are spoken, vows are declared. But words, no matter how eloquent, are only as strong as the actions that follow them. Words can stir a crowd, but actions change a life. Words can inspire for a moment, but actions build trust for a lifetime. Anyone can talk of hope, of kindness, of faith, but it is those who live these things who leave a mark that cannot be erased. Actions speak louder than words. It is easy to say we care about others. It is easy to declare that we are honest, that we are generous, that we are faithful. But the true measure of a person is not found in what they say about themselves. It is found in what they do when no one is looking. It is seen in the quiet choices, the sacrifices made in secret, the integrity held even when it costs everything. A leader may speak of loyalty, but if he turns his back in times of trouble, his words mean nothing. A friend may speak of love, but if she disappears when hardship comes, her words are hollow. A worker may promise diligence, but if he cuts corners when no one is watching, his promises are dust in the wind. The world is not changed by speeches, it is changed by lives lived with purpose. A tree is known by its fruit, not by the beauty of its leaves, not by the sweetness of its scent, but by the fruit it bears. In the same way, a life is known not by words spoken, but by deeds done. Deeds of kindness, deeds of honesty, deeds of courage. There is a hunger in the world today for authenticity, for people who are not merely talking about doing good, but who are doing good. For leaders who do not just preach integrity, but embody it. For parents who do not just instruct their children to be kind, but model kindness in every word and gesture. For neighbors who do not just wish each other well, but step in to help when disaster strikes. When words and actions are aligned, there is power. When people see someone who says little but does much, who does not boast but serves quietly, who does not seek attention but pours themselves out for the sake of others, they cannot help but take notice. And when those actions are rooted in love, in truth, in compassion, they carry a weight that no speech can ever match. Think of the lives that have touched your own. It was not just what they said that stayed with you. It was how they lived, the teacher who stayed late to help you understand, the coach who believed in you when you had given up on yourself, the friend who stood by you when everyone else walked away. Their actions wrote a story in your heart far louder than any words could. This is the legacy each of us is called to leave, not one of great declarations, but one of faithful deeds, not one of grand speeches, but one of daily service, not one of empty promises, but one of fulfilled commitments. There will be moments when the right action is costly, when it would be easier to talk about doing good than to actually do it, when it would be safer to promise loyalty than to stand in loyalty. But it is in those moments that character is forged. It is in those moments that leadership is proven. It is in those moments that lives are shaped not just your own, but the lives of all who are watching. Because someone is always watching. A child watches their parents and learns what it means to be truthful. A worker watches their manager and learns what it means to be honorable. A friend watches another friend and learns what it means to be faithful. Your actions are not isolated. They ripple outward, touching hearts you may never know, inspiring courage you may never see. And someday, when words have faded, when speeches are forgotten, it will be the way you lived, the choices you made, the love you showed that will stand as a testament to who you truly were. So speak wisely, yes? Let your words be filled with hope and kindness, but let your life be louder still. Let your actions proclaim what your mouth could never fully express. Live in such a way that even if you could never speak another word, your life would still tell a story of faith, of hope, of love. Because in the end, actions will always speak louder than words. Leadership is not a crown to wear or a throne to sit upon. It is not a medal to show off or a title to parade before others. Leadership is, and has always been, a sacred trust, a responsibility to be carried with humility, with courage, and with love. Many today seek the title of leader. They desire the authority, the recognition, the influence that comes with it. But leadership is not proved by position, it is proved by service. It is not about how high you stand, but how low you are willing to stoop to lift others up. True leadership means placing the needs of others before your own. It means making decisions that may cost you personally but benefit those you serve. It means speaking truth even when it is unpopular and staying steady even when the storms rage and the road ahead is unclear. A leader is called not to be the loudest voice in the room, but the clearest example, not to demand loyalty, but to inspire it, not to take the easy road, but to walk the narrow, often lonely path of integrity. History reminds us again and again, titles can be given overnight, but true leadership is built day by day, moment by moment, choice by choice. It is forged in the small, secret places where character is tested and courage must be summoned. It is seen in the quiet sacrifices made without applause, in the patient mentoring of the struggling, in the steadfast holding of the line when everything inside says to quit. Leadership is a responsibility, a burden, yes, but also a blessing. When you lead, you carry more than yourself. You carry the hopes, the dreams, the trust of those who follow. Your choices ripple outward, touching lives far beyond your sight. Your attitude becomes the atmosphere others breathe. Your example becomes the standard others imitate. And this is why leadership must be embraced with trembling hands and a steadfast heart. Not because we are perfect, but because we recognize the weight of what has been placed in our hands. If leadership were only about titles, it would be shallow and short-lived. Titles come and go. Positions change, influence fades, but the impact of true leadership, the kind rooted in service and sacrifice, echoes across generations. Think of the leaders who have changed the course of history. They were not always the ones with the highest offices or the grandest titles. They were often the ones who, without fanfare, bore burdens heavier than their own. They stood when others fled, they spoke when others stayed silent, they loved when others hated, they gave when others took. Leadership is tested most when the path grows difficult. When followers are weary and afraid, it is the leader who must summon courage not just for themselves, but for everyone else. It is the leader who must offer hope when despair seems the only honest word. It is the leader who must remind others of the dream, the mission, the reason they began the journey in the first place. But even then, leadership is never about lording over others. It is always about lifting others. It is about bringing out the best in those you serve. It is about recognizing that your strength is not for your own glory, but for the good of those entrusted to your care. There is no shortcut to this kind of leadership. It cannot be demanded. It must be earned by daily acts of integrity, by consistent compassion, by steady faithfulness. You may never hear applause for it. You may never receive a trophy or a public acknowledgement. But the reward of true leadership is not found in accolades. It is found in the knowledge that because you led well, someone else grew stronger. Someone else dared to believe. Someone else found the courage to step into their own calling. Leadership is a responsibility. It calls for sacrifice, for patience, for endurance. It calls for a heart that is willing to be broken, a soul that is willing to be stretched, a life that is willing to be poured out. And yet, in this pouring out, there is a filling up. For in serving others, we find our truest purpose. In carrying the burdens of leadership, we find our greatest joy. So if you are called to lead, whether in a grand arena or in the quiet corners of daily life, do not seek the title. Seek the responsibility, carry it with humility, embrace it with courage, fulfill it with love, for titles will fade, but the impact of a life lived in faithful leadership will endure forever. There is a fire that no hardship can extinguish, a strength that no burden can crush, a drive that no obstacle can defeat. That fire is purpose. Purpose is the fuel of performance. Without it, effort soon fades. Without it, the heart grows weary. Without it, even the strongest body will eventually give out. But when a man or woman is driven by purpose, true, burning, God-given purpose, there is no limit to what can be accomplished. We live in a world that often measures performance by outward results. Profits earned, awards won, records broken. But true performance, the kind that matters, the kind that endures, is not born in the pursuit of applause or the thirst for fame. It is born deep inside in the quiet conviction that life is meant for more than survival, that we are here for a reason, that our work, our sacrifices, our struggles all have meaning beyond ourselves. Without purpose, performance becomes a burden. We work, but the work feels hollow. We strive, but the striving wears us down. We move, but there is no joy in the movement. Like a ship adrift without a compass, we spend our strength but arrive nowhere worth reaching. But with purpose, every task is given life. Every obstacle becomes a challenge to overcome, not a reason to quit. Every setback becomes a lesson, not a defeat. Every step, even the smallest, is part of a journey that matters. Purpose lifts the eyes beyond the present pain to the promised reward. It reminds the weary heart why it began the journey in the first place. It strengthens trembling hands and fuels weary feet to take one more step, to fight one more battle, to believe one more day. Performance fueled by purpose is not about perfection. It is about perseverance. It is about pressing on when others have given up. It is about keeping the flame alive even when the night is long and cold. It is about offering your best, not because the world demands it, but because your soul will not settle for anything less. Purpose gives meaning to sacrifice. It turns labor into love. It transforms duty into devotion. When you know why you are doing what you are doing, when you are convinced that it matters, you can endure almost anything. You can find strength you didn't know you had. You can inspire others to find their own strength too. Look at the lives that have shaped the world. They were not always the fastest, the smartest, or the strongest, but they had purpose. They knew who they were and what they were called to do. And that knowledge fueled them to perform beyond all expectation, to stand firm when others fled, to keep building, keep striving, keep believing. Purpose is a powerful thing. It turns the ordinary into the extraordinary. It transforms a simple job into a sacred mission. It gives every moment significance. The parent who raises a child with love and wisdom, the teacher who inspires minds to seek truth, the worker who gives their best in quiet faithfulness. These performances may never make headlines, but they matter in ways eternity will reveal. The greatest tragedy is not to fail. The greatest tragedy is to live without purpose, to spend one's days chasing things that do not last, to perform for the approval of men and miss the calling of heaven. But when you find your purpose, when you anchor your life to something greater than yourself, your performance will no longer be driven by pride, but by passion. Not by fear, but by faith. Purpose aligns our hearts with something eternal. It keeps us steady when the winds change and the storms come. It reminds us that our labor is not in vain. It tells us that even if no one else sees, even if the world does not understand, we are seen by the one who called us, and he is pleased. So whatever you do, lead, teach, build, serve, do it with purpose. Let that purpose be rooted in love. Let it be fueled by a desire to glorify something greater than yourself. Let it be anchored in truth that does not waver with the seasons of life. And when the path grows hard, when the nights are long and the burden heavy, remember why you began. Remember who you are. Remember that your performance, fueled by purpose, is part of a story far bigger than yourself. Purpose will carry you farther than talent ever could. It will keep you true when others falter. It will sustain you when applause fades and recognition is nowhere to be found. It will give your days meaning and your efforts weight. Performance is fueled by purpose. Find your purpose. Hold fast to it. Let it burn in your heart like a holy fire, and let that fire light the way, not just for yourself, but for all who follow. There are many who cry out for change in the world. They look to leaders, to governments, to institutions, and say, do something. They see brokenness, injustice, selfishness, and they long for someone, somewhere, to make it right. And yet, the truth remains the same across every generation. Real change does not begin with them, it always starts with you. It is easy to point the finger, it is easy to blame the failures of others, it is easy to say if only they would change, things would be better. But the deeper, harder truth is that if we want to see the world transformed, it must first begin in our own hearts. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot call others to a higher road if you are unwilling to walk it yourself. You cannot demand honesty from others while living a lie. You cannot preach love while harboring bitterness. The first work is always the inward work, the hard, humbling work of allowing ourselves to be shaped, refined, and renewed. Change starts with one person willing to stand in the gap, one person willing to live differently, one person willing to forgive when others hold grudges, one person willing to hope when others give in to despair, one person willing to love when others choose hate. It always starts with you. The greatest movements in history did not begin with crowds. They began with a single soul who refused to accept the world as it was, and chose instead to live according to a higher calling. They were often unnoticed at first. They were sometimes mocked, often misunderstood. But because they dared to change themselves, they changed the course of history. It is the same in our families, in our communities, in our workplaces. We can pray for change, we can wish for change, but we must also be the change. We must choose daily to live with integrity when it would be easier to compromise. We must choose to speak truth even when lies are more convenient. We must choose to serve when we would rather be served. The work of change is not glamorous, it is often unseen. It happens in the private places, in the quiet decisions, in the battles fought alone, in the prayers whispered in the dark. But make no mistake, these unseen choices are where real leadership is forged. They are where real impact begins. You may think, but who am I? What difference can I make? The enemy of our souls would have you believe that your life is too small, your influence too weak, your voice too quiet. But the God who formed you knows better. He knows that one heart set ablaze with truth and love can light a fire that spreads farther than you could ever imagine. Never underestimate the power of one life surrendered to purpose. Never underestimate the ripple effects of one act of courage, one word of kindness, one stand for righteousness. It always starts with you. It starts with choosing forgiveness when you have every reason to hold on to anger. It starts with practicing gratitude when the world encourages discontent. It starts with showing compassion when it would be easier to walk away. It starts with building bridges instead of walls, speaking hope instead of despair, sowing peace instead of strife. Every day we are given a choice. Will we reflect the brokenness around us, or will we reflect the goodness that we were created to embody? Will we be mirrors of the darkness or beacons of the light? We cannot control what others will do. We cannot guarantee that our example will always be followed. But we can control our own choices. We can decide here and now that whatever happens around us, we will live in a way that honors the truth, that lifts up the broken, that points to something higher, something eternal. The temptation is always to wait for someone else to step forward, to wait for conditions to improve, to wait until we feel more ready. But if we wait for perfect conditions, we will wait forever. The call is not for tomorrow, it is for today, it is for now. You are not powerless, you are not insignificant. You have been given this moment, this life, this opportunity, and what you do with it matters. It always starts with you. It starts with a willing heart. It starts with a surrendered spirit. It starts with a single step of obedience, a single act of faith, a single choice to love when it would be easier to hate. And as you step out, as you live differently, you will inspire others to do the same. Your courage will spark courage in others. Your kindness will awaken kindness. Your faith will stir faith. And slowly, almost invisibly at first, the world around you will begin to change. It always starts with you, and because it starts with you, it will not end with you. The seeds you sow today will bear fruit in ways you may never fully see, but they will bear fruit, lasting and eternal. So take heart, be strong, live boldly, love deeply, shine brightly. It always starts with you.